Good evening. This is Danny Morrow in Tucson, Arizona, the United States of America. I'd like to give my data. My email address is Danny, D-A-N-N-Y .Marrow, M-A-R-R-O-W @gmail.com. My Skype ID is Danny, D-A-N-N-Y .Marrow, M-A-R-R-O-W. My cell phone is 520-390-1393. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! All tribute be to the all-American Muslim in the White House, Barack Hussein Obama. You may ask, well, why would you call the president a Muslim? Well, let me give you a few reasons. The prisoners in Guantanamo, Cuba, Muslims, he wanted to bring them to the United States and have a trial by a civilian jury. Unfortunately, we had some Americans left in New York City who opposed it. He changed his mind. He, being an alleged lawyer, knows full well had he brought those men and women to the United States for trial, a $49 lawyer in New York City, defense attorney, would have got most of them off from being prosecuted as terrorists. They would have gotten off. Why would a lawyer, I might add alleged lawyer, want to do that? Because he's pro-Islam and pro-Muslims. This is a man that went to Saudi Arabia and bowed to the king of Saudi Arabia. As an American, that disgusted me to see the president of the once powerful United States of America bowing to the Saudi Arabian king. And what about Iran? Millions of people demonstrated in Iran for democracy. Guess what happened? Nothing. Barack Hussein Obama saw those people shot, murdered, and butchered in the streets and did nothing to help. Nothing. He wanted Iran to remain in power. What about Syria? Same thing. 50,000 men, women, and children murdered in Syria. And by the way, this Barack Hussein Obama held hands with the representative of the government of Russia. How sweet that is. What a wonderful guy. Holding hands with the representative of a terrorist country, Russia. Well, you say, Danny, why is Russia a terrorist country? Well, who do you think is supplying the weapons to Assyria, and many weapons to Iran, and many weapons in Iraq, and many weapons in Afghanistan, and many weapons in Pakistan, and the list goes on and on. What about Mali? What about Yemen? What about Somalia? What about the Russian government today is nothing but a terrorist state. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood, who has been listed as a terrorist organization for years, now the all-American Muslim in the White House, Barack Hussein Obama, he's going to sell or give, I don't think he's even selling them, fighter aircraft, tanks to Egypt. And who's the head of Egypt? A Muslim Brotherhood person And now Egypt is going to become a terrorist state, just like Assyria, and just like Iran, and just like North Korea, and just like Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, the Fort Hood massacre, this major murdered 13 Americans, shot them down like dogs on a military base. I said it at the time and I repeat it now. The general of that base at that time should be fired. He is responsible for what happened at that base. Lack of security and lack of looking at these Muslim so-called who are serving in the U.S. military. And those boys, they're on their way to a war front at the time. They didn't have to go far, just to Fort Hood, and they were in a war zone. What about Mexico? 30, 40,000 men, women, and children in Mexico, shot down like dogs, bombed like dogs in Mexico by the so-called Mexican cartel. By the way, that brings up another point. Barack Hussein Obama, the genius of international relations, his administration sells weapons to the drug cartel. Think about it, you know. And as a result of that, thousands of Mexicans shot down in the streets, bombed. And now he's trying to get alleged gun laws to protect the children. That's the phrase that he's copied now, to perfect our children in schools. Well, recently there was a robbery in a clothing store and in the United States, and the two people walked in with a gun, held the store up, and one of the two thieves raped a female employee. Well, Mr. Genius and Mr. All-American Muslim, were they registered weapons? The one that they used the gun and the other guy that raped the lady? You see, stupid, you cannot and will not stop violence. And I'll tell you something, Mr. Barack Hussein Obama, if this guy in Egypt uses that weaponry against Israel, I hope Israel attacks the White House. I really mean that. Because you see, that's what they're going to use it against. What enemy is confronting Egypt today that they need F-16 fighters, the top of the line, and need tanks? Zero. The only person that they would be against, or the only country that they would use that weaponry against, is Israel. And I'll tell the primary, the minister of Israel, and I've met personally Mr. Shimon Peres. I met him personally with his bodyguards in a synagogue in Florida, in Miami. And I'm not Jewish. I'm an American and I'm a Christian. But I'll tell you something, Mr. Shimon Peres. Don't believe a word of Barack Hussein Obama. He hates Israel and has demonstrated it, holding hands with a representative of the government of Russia, who is the biggest supplier of weapons against Israel to Syria, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, in North Korea, and Iran, and supplying nuclear technology to Iran. I hope, sir, that you and the government of Israel will not depend upon the United States of America under this administration, because they will do nothing for Israel. I would be surprised if they would fire one bullet at any Muslim in the Middle East, this administration. They have done nothing but bend over backwards for the Muslims in the various countries. They've done nothing, sir. Absolutely nothing. Mr. Prime Minister, I feel much empathy for you, a great former friend of the United States of America, and many of us Americans who've got both feet on the ground and not our head in a delusional state that you're going to have peace with Iran or peace with Syria. The only thing that will bring about peace in those two countries is that those dictators that run them are dead. That's the only thing. And I tell you, Mr. Simon Paris, if you're able to see this video, I shall never forget the honor of meeting a real statesman and a real gentleman as I did in that synagogue in Miami, Florida. Mr. Simon Paris, I repeat what I said. You cannot trust the word of any representative of the government of the United States anymore. They've all gone so far to the left, they don't know how to make a right-hand turn. And Hillary Clinton is just as bad as Barack Hussein Obama. Can you imagine? The ambassador in Libya was calling for help, and they had a history of attacks against the embassy in Benghazi. Months ahead, nobody did nothing. The administration did nothing. Barack Obama did nothing. Hillary Clinton did nothing. And now, 8 hours before the ambassador was killed, murdered, with the help of this administration and Hillary Clinton, they still did not get any help. And Hillary Clinton today in the Congress and the Senate made this stupid statement. Well, we were evaluating who shot John and what was going on. And we were asking questions of this department and another department. Well, and the general of the United States military, chief of staff at that time, should hang his head in shame. He did nothing. What's wrong with picking up the phone and calling the embassy in Libya, Benghazi, and saying, what's the situation? And then scrambling a plane near us at sea on an aircraft carrier to bomb the hell out of those people attacking the embassy. That would take a major decision and discussion. And today Hillary Clinton did the same thing that Barack Hussein Obama does. Talk, 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 with no action. And we, the Americans, are going to suffer eventually. I keep telling people this. They don't seem to want to believe it. We will suffer as a nation eventually, either before this dummy takes over the government and becomes a dictator. I'm talking about Barack Hussein Obama. He's close to being a dictator right now. The Congress does nothing. The Senate does nothing. The FBI does nothing. Secret Service does nothing. CIA does nothing. Where are the men in this country that can stand up to Barack Hussein Obama and get him removed from office? Where are the men in this country that can get Hillary Clinton fired? And now we got Mr. Kerry coming in, and he's equal to or worse than Hillary Clinton. I no more believe this man Kerry than I believe Barack Hussein Obama. They're all liars. And today during the meetings, every Democrat on the Senate and every Democrat in the Congress, all they could do was throw flowers at Hillary. What a great Secretary of State she was. What a great this, and what she's done for women. All of that talk was deflecting from why she was there. She was there because she never read the response from the embassy of help. She did not read those emails or whatever way of communication, and she said that she saw in real time when the embassy was attacked and what happened to the ambassador there when he was murdered. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we have a fire department and a police department. When an incident happens involving a crime in America, generally in the big cities, the police department responds in 5 minutes. Generally, if there's a fire, the fire department responds in 5 minutes or less in the big cities. Here, you've got an ambassador and other representatives of the U.S. government, the State Department, and 2 former SEALs. They're crying, help me, help me, help me. You know what they got? Nothing. And now the families have nothing to remember but their dead bodies that's been buried somewhere, I guess, in America. This is how ridiculous this administration is. I think that somebody should petition the Congress, if it would mean anything, and have Russia declared as a terrorist state, because that's what it is. And I think somebody should petition the Congress not to have any tanks or jets sent to Egypt. Period. There's no need for them to have fighter jets and tanks unless they're going to use it to shoot down and bomb the people in the country that do not want this type of a government such as is currently in place by the Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, I certainly hope that we have somebody left that's going to think of America and not think of the Democratic Party, and who's going to think of America and not think of the Republican Party, who's going to think of America and not supplying $1 billion to Egypt, to a terrorist organization, because that's what they are now, or supplying tanks and aircraft, fighter aircraft, to Egypt, to a terrorist organization. President, the so-called elected president of Egypt, is the Muslim Brotherhood. That's listed as a terrorist organization all over the world by every major country, such as London, Israel, Italy, France, and other countries, and the United States is one of them. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what country you're in, but I'm telling you as American, you cannot believe the word of the present administration or Barack Hussein Obama. You can't believe it. And if you're a country that's pro-Israel or pro-United States, and you think under this administration the United States is going to come in like the cavalry and rescue you when these Muslim terrorist groups take over in your country, like Mali, forget it. All they're going to do is talk. And as far as our military, we need a General Patton as head of the Chief of Staffs, not a bunch of generals that think more of their stars than they do the United States of America and the countries that we're in. I strongly recommend that someone petition Congress and not give any financial aid to any Muslim country, period. Period. Let Saudi Arabia give them the money and not the United States of America. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry to paint such a black history, but this is what's going on. Hillary Clinton sat before the Congress and the Senate today and smiled like she'd done something wonderful by helping the women of the world, and all the Democrats threw roses at her, what a great person she is, and blah, 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 blah. She's not a great person. She was responsible for allowing our ambassador, 2 former SEAL people, and a State Department official to die like a dog in the embassy. That's what Hillary Clinton did for the United States of America. And then she did typically what this administration does. Well, we didn't have enough money. We've been denied the billions of dollars that was given to build more embassies and blah, 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 blah. Every question she was asked, she deflected from the real question. Who had brains enough to pick up the phone and call the embassy and say, we're sending help right now. We're sending the Hell's Angels, because at least they'll go to fight, because our military is not going to do nothing. And the State Department's not going to do nothing. And the President, so-called, of the United States of America is going to do nothing also. Thank you very much.